7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Spike and myself here, and very excited because we're going to talk some hockey in this podcast. Spike, what's going on with you?
I'm looking forward to talking current hockey because everything on my DVR right now is like the 2011 Bruins Stanley Cup run. You got games from the 1990 and 91 seasons on the Diver. There's a lot. I need current hockey, although it has been nice to watch Ray Bourque a couple of times, so that was
yeah. You can't go wrong with nostalgic hockey, but you're right. I think it's time, at least hopefully coming soon, that we're going to have some current hockey in place. And we're going to talk to Ken Boehlke of SinBin.Vegas to hopefully shed some light on that. Some things NHL and most things Golden Knights.
Yeah.
What are you most interested to chat with him about?
So I just kind of want to get his general ideas about what he sees the team doing, what he sees the league doing when this comes back. You know, we talk a little bit about what you and I have seen as a scenario where the team or the league could come back and how that would look, and if we could quarantine some players in the same city and have them play the games in Arizona in front of no fans, and then that would typically happen in a game in Arizona anyway. I'm talking about like an actual empty arena. And
ones where they're purposely not selling tickets.
Yes, exactly. But I want to talk to him about Fleury because he hasn't really engaged on Twitter so much, but every time he writes an article, he says future Hall of Famer Marc-Andre Fleury. And half the time I have commented he's not a Hall of Famer, and then he ends up deleting my comment as opposed to actually responding to me. He hasn't interacted with me on Twitter about it. He has on other topics, but not specifically about that.
I think you might get your chance here.
Yeah, I'm hoping. So we'll see what happens because it's an interesting case, and I'm curious to hear what he has to say because aside from wins, and the more cynical amongst the voters could probably say that wins are a team stat, I don't see it. I mean, He's basically had the same career as Chris Osgood, except Chris Osgood has 2 Jennings trophies, and he's not in the Hall of Fame.
That's fair. The Vegas Squares podcast is sponsored by 12 Ounce Sports. You can catch them at 12ozsportsradio.com and also Seat Giant. Promo code 12 Ounce Sports for all your discounted sporting events, concert, and theater tickets whenever those come back into play. I hope I don't have to say that for too much longer.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get back to normal, but I don't know. I'm becoming less and less optimistic that this will end sooner rather than later.
Give us live sports on TV. I'll shut up for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we get something by like August. Because originally I thought May would be fine. Like we would be in May and then things would be back to normal and blah, blah, blah. But May is like an hour and a half from now. And
pretty much, yeah.
I'm just, if Nevada's phase 1 doesn't start for another at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, I don't know. I'm getting less and less optimistic about this starting up anytime soon.
Yeah, keep the faith, brother.
Yeah.
All right, well,
priest.
Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Ken on because I'm very excited to talk to him because we all love talking hockey, and let's talk to somebody who may be a little more in the know than we are.
Yeah, an actual insider.
There you go. Joining us in the Vegas Squares podcast, Ken, we're out of hockey right now, but you seem to be keeping pretty busy with all things Vegas Golden Knight related.
We find a way. I don't know. I kind of make up news whenever I can and write articles about people flipping the bird off to other players in their previous games. I don't know. We find something.
That's what it's all about. I mean, right now, I've seen everything from your articles to NHL 2020 simulations, and that are getting 40,000 viewers on Twitch. So, I mean, you're in the right spot at this point.
Yeah, I'm not one of those viewers. I can't do the NHL simulations. I just can't do it. I don't know. It's just not for me.
I 100% agree with you. But you had discussed off the air talking about the SinBin YouTube game.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's taken off right now based on what I've seen on social media.
It's the SinBin.Vegas virtual game show that we play on Zoom like this. And it's like a trivia / newlywed game. So we bring on some celebrities or whoever seems interestingly enough that I can call a celebrity. And they have to answer trivia questions and then match with their partner. And it's been fun. We're working on upping the guests. I'm trying to get Turk to come on. We'll see if that happens.
Ooh.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Is there I got to imagine there's bad blood there. That's got to be tough.
Oh, no, he loves me.
Oh, I thought you guys didn't, you guys kind of butted heads from time to time.
Oh, no. He's my guy. I like Turk. Turk and I are good. There were some people he didn't like. He hates the Golden Knights, I'm sure, but I hate the Golden Knights too for him.
At least the Golden Knights probably flew him back instead of just getting him a cab, correct?
I don't know. Although that story, from what I understand, it was his decision to not do it, not so much Carolina doing that to him, or not Carolina, Florida.
Florida,
he was in
yeah.
Carolina. Yeah.
He seems like a very prideful man, so it doesn't shock me now knowing. Back in the day when he was with Florida, I didn't know too much about him, but
yeah.
It makes a little more sense that he showed himself out. But yeah, watch the SinBin virtual game show. It seems like you're more animated than ever at this point, and I know you're getting into it. But just tell us a little bit about what you do on that game show.
So basically, it's teams of two. So there's 3 different teams. We have Jason play, my co-host, every game. And he has never wins, which is good. Even though he should, most of the questions he should know. Like today we had a question about what is our Instagram handle, and Jason actually ran our Instagram handle for over a year, and he didn't know what it was. So that was pretty bad. But yeah, we use different trivia, like a Golden Knights trivia. We do a lot of Vegas trivia, gambling trivia, Vegas-related stuff. Every once in a while, I'll throw in a screw Dan O'Halloran trivia somewhere in there whenever we can.
That's
anytime we can mix that stuff in. But yeah, it's basically a trivia game. But then there's some wacky scoring, because it wouldn't be my type of game if it didn't have over-the-top rules that no one understood.
Yeah, I think most definitely you should try to get Dan O'Halloran on the game show.
No, I'm good. He'll screw it up.
All right, fair enough. Oops, I lost my network connection here.
Recognition on the show, right?
I don't know that I would be able to do anything but yell at him the entire game if he was on there. I would just be so mad the whole game.
Every time he got something wrong, just be like, "No, you fucking idiot! No!"
Goddamn time. Like every single question would be related to whether or not shoving someone with their stick indicates should be a 5-minute penalty. It's like, if you were to do this and I show a video, is that a 5-minute penalty?
You could make that a whole category.
Yeah, the entire game would all be penalties that are not majors that he ended up calling majors.
That would be your most watched episode.
Probably.
At least in the 702.
Somehow that would involve me getting in contact with him, and if he did any research about me, he would quickly deny that request. And I would agree. That would probably be a good call.
You'd understand, yeah. Let's talk about one of the new topics in the news right now is the NBA is starting to kind of, I guess, open doors towards some teams practicing based on states and cities that are starting to lift regulations. As you know, Vegas tomorrow starting to lift regulations to begin phase 1. You talked about disagreeing with that for the NHL to do. Why is that?
So I don't think it's necessarily fair for them to open the buildings up for some teams and not open it for other teams. I think in basketball, it's real easy for guys to shoot around at their own house. They can get conditioned to be able to run and do everything you can do in basketball. Now, obviously, it's not game speed, but you can work out on your own without actually being in the ring or in the facility. Where for hockey, literally nobody is able to go on ice. Like, I'm not sure what the weather is in Canada, but I don't think a lot of the ponds are frozen at the moment. And I know here, there's not a lot of ice available out and about here. The only two options are City National, T-Mobile, and then any of the public rinks, and they're not all open. So I don't think it's really fair to have certain teams have the ability to get themselves in condition where other teams do not. I think it's a massive competitive disadvantage if you're a team that can't get back on the ice. So I think it's, personally, I would like them to just open them as soon as possible and get the Golden Knights guys on the ice as quickly as possible. But if I'm a team in New York or I'm a team in Chicago or Boston or anywhere that's a hotspot, it just doesn't seem fair to me. So it's going to be a huge hurdle. And honestly, I think it's going to cost them probably a month or maybe even longer, where the NBA should end up getting back before the NHL solely based on that. The camp, they're going to have a longer camp for hockey.
Right. And Spike, you and I talked about this last podcast about maybe potentially, like Ken said, the hotspots, New York, Chicago, et cetera, finding a way to get those teams to places like Nevada or maybe Arizona, quarantining them for whatever period of time is necessary, and then trying to, move forward with the season. Ken, what do you think about something like that? I mean, we talked about that with basketball, but you're right. Basketball is so much easier to get started than, these guys probably haven't skated since, what was that, March 11th or so?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think you're right, March 11th. I think actually Vegas skated in the morning of March 12th in Minnesota when they were supposed to play that game. And then it got canceled, and they skated for absolutely no reason. I think the challenge there is going to be, where do you put them? What city is the right place to put the teams? I don't know that Vegas is a good option for that, solely because we don't have enough ice. We only have the 2 sheets of ice, and they're 20 miles apart from each other. So busing guys back and forth off the strip doesn't make a lot of sense. Obviously, we have the hotel room situation, which is good, but I don't think anybody's going to be like, yeah, let's go play at Sobe Arena. Not so good. So then the other issue is you got borders which are involved. So say if we're going to Canada, are they going to allow a group of players from New York to go into Canada? If I'm Canada, I'm like, we're good. Stay over there.
Build the wall.
I think, there's going to be some challenges there that they're going to have to get over. And I think your best bet is honestly going to a city that has nothing going on, and this is their only option. Do you want possibly 9 guys from New York? I guess we're North Dakota. That's fine. I think that's kind of where we're headed. Somebody's going to have to step up, and I don't know where that's going to be, but my guess is it's either going to be all in America or they're going to do it all in Canada. And I don't know which one's the better option.
Well, are some of these foreign players, like the Russians and the Finns, are they still with the team? Are they still in their cities? Or are they back home?
They were allowed to go back home about a week or a week and a half into the quarantine. They basically said, if you can get home, you can go home. From what I understand, all the Golden Knights are in Vegas except for Nick Cousins.
Shipachyov.
Wow, don't remind me. Don't bring him up. He makes me sad. But yeah, Nick Cousins is in Canada, somewhere in Toronto-ish area over there.
Fair enough. Well, if and when we do get this season started or resumed, which angle do you find more attractive? Shortening the season back to 68 or trying to get the games finished up to 82?
I don't think it makes a huge difference in regards to how they decide the regular season. I think that teams are going to get screwed no matter how you do it. So whether you go back to 68, you go with points percentage after where we exactly were, you go a few extra games, someone's going to be left out that feels like they shouldn't have been left out. So to me, that doesn't make a huge difference. The one thing I do think has to happen is they've got to find a way to play competitive games before the playoffs. They've got to find some way, and I don't know if that means seeding or whatever. And obviously seeding isn't going to matter anymore because there's no home games, or at least no fans.
There's no home field advantage at this point.
Yeah. I don't know if you find a way to get a team a win or something. I don't know, but you've got to find a way to play competitive games because the hockey is going to be shit if they just come out and play playoffs. It's not going to look right, and the wrong teams are going to do the right things, and it's not going to be what we wanted. And then Drew Doughty's it's not a real cup thing will end up coming true, which nobody wants Drew Doughty to be right.
Well, yeah, exactly. And yeah, you're right. It could look like preseason hockey in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Gary Bettman, I would say he's a smarter man than we are, but that might not be true. But
It's about equal, maybe. We might have the edge. Between the three of us, I'd say we definitely have the edge.
I would hope so.
Individually, we're probably about equal. I'm a little below, I'd say.
Fair enough. I'm for finishing the season any way possible because the time frame, as when we actually resume to when we finish, I'm okay with whatever we decide to do. The other twist would be starting the next season as well, which I'm less worried about than finishing this one because Spike's a Bruins fan. They need revenge for losing in Game 7 to the Blues. Also a Golden Knights fan as well. They're in the playoffs looking to avenge the disaster that was Dan O'Halloran's call in Game 7. But you're right. If these guys are all stuck out on the ice with, basically drop the skates and go playoff hockey, I don't know if I can. Maybe they can use the last 14 or so games as tune-up. The players that got in, the teams that got in after 68 games now have 10 or so games to kind of warm up, as they say.
So kind of the way that I see it is there's two important things the NHL is trying to do. Number one, they want made-for-TV playoff hockey. So if there's not going to be fans in the building, they want the games to matter as much as physically possible, which is obviously playoffs. So playing preseason, playing meaningless games, they don't want to do it. They are going to understand they may have to do a little bit of it, but for the most part, they're going to want to get to meaningful games as fast as possible. But then the other part is on the back end of it, which is once fans are allowed back in the building, they need 31 teams playing because that's how they make their money. If you only have 4 teams playing when the world says you can put 15,000 in a building, the NHL is going to be like, God damn it, we should be having 31 teams as opposed to just 4. And as much as you can make more money in the playoffs, the league as a whole has to be going at full strength when the fans are allowed back in. So they've got to find a way to kind of balance how late can we go with playoff made for TV hockey that we're not overlapping, taking away games that have fans. And I don't think anybody has the answer to that because who knows when we're going to get 15,000 in an arena again. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of the weird point, the point that I've been making on the internet, not necessarily just about hockey, but about other aspects of life, is that this isn't going to be a light switch where it's just you flick a switch and all of a sudden everything's back to the way it was and you're getting 15,000 people, the butts in the seats, so to speak. But I think that's a good point. The one that we really hadn't touched on here is the revenue stream of the NHL, that if they're in, say, the conference finals when it opens up again and they only have 4 teams playing, that's not going to be enough. So is that pushing the league towards a modified playoff schedule, like what has been rumored and swirling around? I know
where
every
everybody
time it comes out, somebody from the NHL says, no, we're not doing that. But it swirls around way too often for me to think that this is just coincidental and not actually being discussed at the highest levels.
I think they're just trying to figure out, like, how long of an off season are we going to actually have, and then working backwards. And then whenever they get the go ahead, and we've heard, I think today that Pierre LeBrun reported that they're looking at possibly December to start the next season. So obviously they're willing to push that back further. And the part that I don't really understand is why they're even talking about December, November, whatever. Like, we all feel like when this comes back, like, okay, we need to get back to October to June. Why? Like, I don't understand why that has to be right now. Like, why can't it be a 5-year process where, say, this year is January all the way until September, and then the following year is November or whatever, as it moves back? I think there's a way to do it to make it an extended period where you're changing the calendar. That also would give the NHL an opportunity to go up against different sports, and maybe they can benefit. It's something the NHL has been stuck at 4th forever. And this could be an opportunity to push forward. And I don't think they're going to overtake the NFL, but I think they can overtake MLB. And I think it's possible they can overtake the NBA if it's offset and the timing works out. If they get their good games in the right period, it could possibly push forward. So they've got to figure out how long are we going to go with an off season, and then when do we realistically think people are going to get back in the buildings? And that comes all down to the vaccine, right?
Yeah, I mean, vaccine's certainly part of it, or herd immunity, or whatever the case may be. The vaccine is going to be the biggest crux of it. So
and taking the fear out of many people unwilling to come back to a sporting event.
And that's going to be the other question is, I'm curious, Ken, if you've talked to people and said, when the building opens back up, how willing are you going to be to go to a game? Obviously, you're mostly talking to Golden Knights diehards.
Yeah.
So I imagine that they would be more willing to get into the arena than, say, just a casual fan, somebody that's looking to buy on a third-party site, maybe one game a season.
Trying to find the poll we ran. Here it is. So
I remember you ran a poll.
Yeah, not too long back, April 12th to 13th. We ran a poll that basically asked how likely people would be to go to the game. So it said, when the NHL pause ends, which describes your willingness to go to a game at T-Mobile? 48% said no fear, I'm in right away. 22 said little scared, but I'll go. 19 said not until mass testing. 11% said not until a vaccine. So that's 70% that said they would go, which is super high. And obviously, again, these are people interacting with a website that covers hockey. They're the most diehard Golden Knights fans that are interacting with us. But that's a pretty strong number, and it was 2,300 votes. So I don't think that they're going to have that big a problem. Like, I think once they open up, the governments have been so negative throughout all of this. Like, they've been so stay in your house, don't touch anything, don't do anything. If the go ahead is given, yeah, fine, mass gatherings are okay. I think most people are going to be at that point like, you know what, if they're saying we can do this, this has to be fairly safe. Like, I'm going to be willing to do it. I think the second they open it up to fans, Vegas will go right back to 18,000 every single night. I don't think they'll drop their sellout streak at all.
Yeah, I agree with that statement as well. But do you think the Knights or T-Mobile would start to put provisions in place, or do they not have to? Is that on the guests or the fan to really control themselves from touching everything in the arena?
It's going to be timing, right? It's just going to depend on when they do it. If it's 2 years from now, we should be fine. I don't know, maybe. But I think the other thing is it's we all jump on it like, okay, either there's fans or there's not fans. Like, it's kind of like a or B. I think there's an intermediate there. I think it's possible that they say we're opening up to 1,000 and the tickets are $1,100 or some crazy number. Like, and we're bringing you in at certain amount of times. You're sitting in certain sections. And I think that actually is possible, because from the NHL's perspective, if they get the go ahead to allow, even if it's 500 people in the building, take your $1,000 from each of the 500, and that goes towards hockey-related revenues. Like, I think they're going to be money hungry because they're missing out on a ton of money that they've already paid for.
Well, that's scary in itself in terms of season ticket holders like both of us are. What does that mean for something like that?
Got to be a lottery, right? That's how I would do it.
I mean, are you paying for the lottery, or are you losing your money?
No, I don't think so. I think they'd say, so let's say it's 5,000 people. The tickets would be effectively 3 times the cost in each individual spot. If it's 1,000, then they'd be 18 times the cost, or however you want to do it. And if you want to put your name in for the lottery and you win the lottery and want to buy the tickets, go ahead.
And what if you've already paid for this season? I mean, Spike's a full season ticket holder. I think you have 3 games left?
4, 3, 4, 5, something like that, whatever it is. I mean, it's a handful. And then,
and this isn't, obviously your jurisdiction. I'm just curious what, in a spot like that, what they're thinking of, all the different, they're probably sitting there at the table every single day, because the narrative changes so much.
And I think they've already written it off. I think those 4 games they've already written off. We're refunding everybody. Like, I think they're already on board with that. And then I think from the league perspective, their thought is, all right, well, we've got all these teams and guys like us who have paid for next season. How do we make sure we keep their money? They're going to push the regular season back as far as they possibly can, because they don't want to give the money back. They know they're going to have to give the money back for the 4 games that they're not playing these 4 games of fans. Like, it's not happening. But next season, they want to keep that money, and they should want to keep that money. And I think they're going to do what the best they can to do it. It's just, I don't know how that looks, but they're going to want to keep your money. Like, in the NHL, if there's one thing I know for sure about the NHL, it's they want your money and they're not giving it back.
It's a fair assessment.
Which is sort of a problem, and that's one of the things that makes me a little nervous is the force majeure clause in the season ticket holder contract that says, with a pandemic or with some kind of act of God like this, if games get canceled, they don't have to refund the money. So I imagine they would, or if not a refund, apply it to next season or apply it to the playoffs, whatever the case may be. Have you actually heard anything from the office, from the Golden Knights about?
So every time I reach out, I kind of get the same answer, which is we're running through all the different scenarios, but we don't have enough information of where it's going to go. For the most part, the kind of off the record information I get is it's kind of the same. We're going to do our best to take care of people.
Okay.
What that means and how that ends up going forward, I don't know. Most people tend to get mad at the Golden Knights season ticket people no matter what they do. So I don't think they can win anyway. But I think that the way that it's going to work with this team, especially that we're not cheering for a poor team, like it'd be way worse if we're cheering for Ottawa or Arizona, Carolina. This isn't a poor team. This isn't a poor owner. And he's well aware that he needs all of the fans back and can get them if they do the right thing. I think they're going to do the right thing. I don't know that there's just going to be checks cut towards people, though. It's all going to get pushed forward.
Yeah, I was going to say push forward to playoffs for next season or whenever you're allowed back in the building for sure.
Well, I mean, that makes the most sense, obviously, and it makes, least amount of headache for the season ticket holders, and it gives them an incentive to stay around because they already have a credit. So I get that.
And you've already invested in your full season for 2019, 2020. If they push that to 2020, 2021, it feels like found money.
Right. Yeah. The question is going to be, if you're in a situation where, say, you had the hardship of you haven't been making money for all this time and you look at next season and say, you know what, I was going to be able to pay for that. Now I can't. Are you going to be able to get that money back? That's going to be an interesting part that I don't know what they're going to do. I would imagine in exceptional cases they'll get it back, but it's probably going to be pulling teeth.
Or at least let me sell my contract.
Well, not only sell the contract, but think about what this entire pandemic is doing to third party or reselling of tickets. Because if people aren't willing to go to games, or at least they're hesitant about going to games, that shrinks an already bad market. I mean, Ken, I assume that you go to every game since you're covering, like, this is your livelihood at this point. But, there were a handful of games that my wife and I had to miss. And when we tried to sell the tickets this year, it was a nightmare. I either sold at face value or a loss. I think all but one time we had to sell this year.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly was going to shrink. I think that the price started to head towards actual market value, where the first season it was like a third of market value, where it was going to head that way. And I think eventually the thing I'm interested in is I kind of wonder when we come out of this, when there's been no sports for however long it's going to be, it looks like it's probably going to be 5 months or so that we're going to have no sports, maybe. Hopefully it's not that long, but however long it's going to be, I think there might be a pretty strong appetite for people to say, I don't even care. Like, I got to go to a game. Like, I really want to go to a game. I don't know how that works for season ticket holders, but I think there's going to be a strong appetite. It's just the question is it all going to go to football? Which it might.
Yeah,
I know my money's going to football.
They got to get that thing finished first.
Nah, they'll figure it out. As long as Tom Brady can get here, I'll be happy.
Oh, that's right. They do play in Vegas this year.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
How much you ponying up for those tickets?
I don't care. Pick a number. It's just unbelievable to me that I cheer for the shittiest franchise in like all of sports, and then it's like, all right, here's Tom Brady. They're coming to where you live, where there wasn't even a team. Oh, and by the way, we're going to play without fans. Like, oh, God, that would
or not play at all.
What a mess. Yeah, it's not like we need Tom Brady to play now. It's not like he's 48. He's 43. But
yeah, he's an old man. But, I mean, at some point you just buy an unregistered drone and fly it over the stadium so you can get your own shots, right?
There you go.
Can I ride the drone?
Ooh.
Do they have
you can buy a sturdy one to do that.
You need to get to that SinBin research and development right now.
I only weigh about $150. I gotta get on that.
Yeah, eBay.
Scrawny motherfucker right here.
Yes, very.
I think I've shipped things way more than you.
I know. It's brutal.
All right, so let's talk about the team. A couple of things I noticed. A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned a tweet, or you tweeted, that Ryan Reeves had agreed to an extension, or at least was in talks.
It was close.
Yeah, it was close. Excuse me, yes. Is there any update on that? Because Spike and I have conflicting opinions on Ryan Reeves.
There is not an update on that. I'm assuming my opinion's going to agree with one of your two opinions because I have a very strong opinion on that as well. But no update on it. From what I was told, there was a lot of discussion about it. The source that I had seemed to think that it was actually done. The time that has passed makes me believe that it probably was not done. But I think the portion that's important out of all of it is they were discussing a multi-year deal, which
The 33-year-old guy a bruiser, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm pretty sure I know Spike's stance on this. I'm okay with Ryan Reeves coming back, but not at that AAV that he's at right now. I think he's got to be somewhere near Carrier.
Yeah, it better be under $1.50.
Yeah, and I would be perfectly fine just saying, see ya.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for the
feel
memories.
same way.
See ya.
Having been around the organization long enough and understanding what they believe in him and who's in charge and everything, like, they love the guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well,
He's not going
he is Vegas's Sean Thornton, who I compare Reeves to all the time as a Bruins fan because Sean Thornton was that guy, and not even as used as Reeves because he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs, especially in the 2011 Cup run where he was getting scratched for Tyler Seguin. For all the people on earth, it was Tyler Seguin or Sean Thornton, depending on if they wanted speed or muscle. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy, you know, he does a certain job, but Carrier does the same job. He's younger. He does it for less money. And that fourth line has been just a void of offense for so long that having two guys that do the same job on that line just has never made sense to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's going to come down to the number. If the number's 1-2 or 1-3 or something, all right, that's fine. Like, I'd rather have them than not have them. Something happens to Carrier, you have an option. It's going to come down to DeBoer. And we knew with Gallant, no matter what, pretty much, Reeves was going to be in the lineup. Now, he was a healthy scratch during quite a bit of the Cup run the Golden Knights had. And if it weren't for a few injuries that they had, and Perron and Tatar being god-awful, if it weren't for some of that, maybe he doesn't play as much. But now that DeBoer's in charge, I do wonder, because he is the type of guy where he will look at somebody and reduce their minutes to 4 minutes and then eventually yank them out of the lineup. Like, he's not the type of guy that I think has to have the bruiser in his lineup as much as I think Gallant did. And that being said, I think McCrimmon and McPhee want him in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this lineup, like, let's just take the 2021, you know, contract situations. He's an unrestricted, Nosek's unrestricted. Stevenson and Cousins are both restricted free agents of the forwards. My guess is that Stevenson and Cousins are coming back by any means necessary. If this extension for Reeves isn't true as of right now, my thoughts are him and Nosek both might walk. But I hear a lot that the front office likes Nosek.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on Nosek because realistically, like, what can this team pay Nosek? Not that much more than what he's making. Like, I don't see him being anywhere above maybe 1.4 or so. And I wonder with him, like, it's going to come down to whether he's willing to leave or not. He just had the kid. He's finally kind of settled into the NHL here. Like, it's going to come up to him because you have to think somebody's going to go back and put in the tape of the Cup final and see him scoring all the goals in the Cup final and think, let's do it. Like, let's go get that guy. And somebody might overpay for him. With Reeves, the dude is going to live here the rest of his life. Like, he's set up shop here. He's got the businesses here. I would just play unbelievable hardball with that guy and be like, it's $1 million. You want to play for $1 million and live where you want to live or not? Like, it's up to you. And play chicken with him. And like William Karlsson, they did. He'll come back. They did the exact same thing with Karlsson. They basically said, look, either you sign for this number or we're going to trade you. Like, it's your call. Do the same thing with Reeves. Let Vegas win the player over and make that the cap.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Nosek, if he does come back on $1 million, $1.4 million, whatever it is, what does that mean for Cody Glass? It's like, I know he hasn't performed up to our expectations.
Oh, fucking get rid of Glass already. Jesus Christ.
Case in point, Exhibit A. But he's the only draft pick left of that inaugural draft that all the eggs are in with this guy, no?
I mean, Haig's still there, and maybe Dugan can become something. Right. Elvenis is still floating around, had a good year in the AHL.
But those first three picks were those were the guys.
Yeah, but that turned into Stone Pacioretty.
Agreed, and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
As long as a cup comes of it.
I
Otherwise,
mean, the question, like, yeah, eventually you're going to have to get some production out of entry-level contracts. And, like, I don't know where Glass fits because realistically, even just take apart, like, don't even worry about Noshik and those guys. Just at center alone, Carlson's better, Stastny's better, Stevenson's better, and I would have to make the argument Cousins is better.
what about Nick Roy?
Nick Watt could be better.
Wow, thank
too.
you.
Yeah,
I don't know
Nick
why I
Watt
said
could be better too. So like he's looking at possibly 5th or 6th as a center. If Noshik comes back, he might push to 7. Like I've never been all that high on Cody Glass anyway. Like I liked him when they first drafted him, and then I got to watch him play, and I'm like, he's a facilitator. He's a defensive first facilitator, and that's not a 6th overall pick to me.
Yeah, I was furious with the Pacioretty trade simply because it was Suzuki over Glass.
Yeah.
Suzuki to me is the kind of guy that has such a high hockey IQ, can move the puck, is offensive and defensive minded, a penalty kill specialist. He's the kind of guy you build lines around in order to keep him around. And Glass is just, he's a playmaker. I recently on Reddit compared him to Joey Junot, who was a guy that when I was living in the Boston area, he lived on my street when he was playing in Boston. So I got to know him a little bit.
I think he's a McPhee guy.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a...
I think they drafted him, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
That could be. So it was just one of those things where I was devastated that Suzuki was gone. And, if Glass can't stay healthy, that's one thing. And then the comparison, is trying to say that, that's maybe just bad luck. But I think even when Glass, as a healthy player, is just not up to the speed of Suzuki. And I'm still upset about that.
They lean over center. Like, I don't think they ever saw Suzuki being a center. And then he goes to Montreal, and he's played center pretty well. I think they always saw him as a wing. And if you're building a roster long-term, you're going to lean center over wing. And I think they found him somewhat equal. The thing I'm concerned about is going back. I think there was a realistic opportunity that they could have traded up to 5 and got Pedersen. And they didn't do it. I mean, I've seen a video with Jim Benning talking about it and making that deal, and Vegas ended up sitting where they were. The problem is, I think if Vegas would have gone up, they would have picked Glass over Pedersen, and I think they're lucky that didn't happen.
Yeah, how much would they have given up just to get the same guy?
Correct. And it would have looked stupid. Like, at least the good news is behind him. Like, okay, yeah, you had Suzuki, you turned him into Pacioretty. Yeah, you can live with that. There's not a lot behind him. Like, Philip Heedle's been good. Robert Thomas has been all right. There's not a ton back there. Like, the Batherson kid's been okay. That draft was terrible.
Well, okay. Humor spike here real quick.
Oh, God.
Derek England will not be on the roster next year.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah!
I just don't see any way that they can do it. Like, they were close to not bringing him back this year. I actually had pretty good sources saying that he had a deal on the table to go to Anaheim for more money and chose to not take it because he didn't want to go to Anaheim. He didn't want to live away from his family for that long. There was another rumor that he was looking at Tampa, which I have a hard time believing that they would even go down that road. But yeah, I think it's just a question of where they're going to put him. Is it going to be with the AHL team? Is it going to be, and this is coaching or whatever, front office. I just, especially with this, like, it was already getting late if he was going to start playing next season in October. If they start next season in January, it's even worse, and we're going into his 38th year.
All right, so Ken, we'll move on to Spike wants to debate a little bit, so I'll let him. He'll take over from here.
Yes. So, and this has come up a few times, and it seems like anytime you write an article that talks about Fleury, you always call him future Hall of Famer Marc-Andre Fleury. And I am dying to know how you can justify that sort of claim about Fleury, because I just don't think the numbers back it up.
Because I don't think it's going to come down to numbers. I think it's going to come down to people. And I think Marc-Andre Fleury, every single person that's ever met him, they love him. And he's going to have enough numbers. He's going to have win numbers. He's going to have the 3 cups behind him. He's got, 5 cup appearances. And I can understand the argument numbers-wise to go against him. I think it's going to come down to the people that are going to end up voting are going to end up saying, you know what, we love this guy, we're going to put him in. And it's amazing how often that happens in every single sport. Guys that people hate take a little bit longer. Guys that people love will get in. And if you've ever met Marc-Andre Fleury and then you have to fill out a ballot for Hall of Fame, it will physically pain you to not check his name.
So I can get that argument to a certain degree. I just think that that goalies are such a different breed, such a different animal, especially in the NHL, that getting in is so hard. I mean, hockey's been around in obviously the NHL founded in 1917, but the game itself was being played for 20 or 30 years before that. There are 36 goalies in the Hockey Hall of Fame in total.
How many of the top 10 in wins are in there? Do you know?
Top 10 in wins, that I don't know, but I think
gotta be most of them. I remember most of the time I see the list, most of the guys are in there. And again, I think that's a bit of a ridiculous stat, especially with the time that he plays in, because a lot of the guys that are on that list above him played in an era with ties. So they don't have the ability to get nearly as many wins, where there's has to be a winner. So you have a way better chance. And again, I completely understand the argument. I think it's going to be longevity. He was a first overall pick. He played immediately. He brought a team to multiple cups with one team, went to a new team as an expansion team, and that expansion team was instantly good. Many people believe solely due to him. Obviously not winning the cup final and being overtaken with Murray a couple of times, but he has 3 rings. There's no argument. His number's definitely going to be retired in Pittsburgh. His number's almost certainly going to be retired here. I don't see a way that a goalie who was a first overall pick, has 3 cups, 5 cup appearances, and a massive number of wins isn't in the Hall of Fame, especially when he's a lovable guy.
The lovable guy thing I think is going to hurt a little bit, but I mean, like I said, I'm a data nerd. Like I worked in a university office of institutional research for a number of years, so this is my thing. But I think the problem is with the guys that get in, they have both the stats and they have the individual awards. I think wins for the more cynical amongst the writers can be written off as a team exercise.
I agree,
which is kind of a problem. But I mean, just like across the board, it's nothing. No.
However, that cup 3 is pretty important.
Well, it is, but 2 of them were as a backup, or at least for the most part.
Cup appearances is 5.
Cup appearances, that is something I didn't include on this list, nor did I include ties, which is probably something I should have put on there.
You also have win percentage. He's near the top, and again, you can push away how many actual wins he has, but win percentage, he's been terrific the entire time.
Sure. Save
percentage is it's a weird stat. Like sometimes that has to do with team, sometimes that has to do with goalie. And again, I get it. Like he was not the rookie of the year. He's never been Conn Smythe, and I don't think he's ever been close. And he probably wouldn't have won it had the Golden Knights come back and won that series. Somebody would have had to score a bunch of goals, and I don't think he would have won Conn Smythe. Maybe he does based on the beginning of that playoff run. But yeah, I still think he's going to get in fairly easily. Maybe it's not first ballot or whatever, but what's his? I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, what's his Team Canada history?
That's a good question. Aaron, you can look that up since we don't have the producer here.
I can't do anything. You're on my screen.
I got it.
You only have 1 screen? Come on, man. I got 3, and I got the laptop. Actually,
I'm sorry I don't have Megadesk. This is the tiny office. I wasn't expecting your screen to pop up on mine.
Well, and this is kind of my problem, is that Fleury stats are pretty close to Osgood, and if Osgood doesn't get in, I don't see how Fleury gets in. And I think that this is kind of the problem, because for me, it's obviously the cup appearances help, but again, he played for a really good Pittsburgh team for a number of years. But you look at a guy like Belfour, Belfour is obviously pretty close in goals against and save percentage, but if you look at just strictly playoff, that goals against average drops to about 2.03, and that save percentage goes up to like 94.
Yeah, there's not a lot of international. He's got 2 silvers in World Juniors and a gold in the Olympics, but he wasn't actually in any of the games. So very little there, because a lot of times they'll use that to justify it.
Yeah, and that can make sense. But and this is, my point has always been, especially this, that when the Vezina voting comes out, they obviously have to look at the best goalies out there. And if he doesn't win, like, look at Luongo. If not for Tim Thomas in 2011, Luongo wins the Vezina in 2011. Like, that's just – if Fleury's putting up unbelievable seasons, but somebody just has a slightly better season and edges him out for the Vezina. I get it. Like, that makes sense to me. But when you're looking at his inability to even get better than fourth, and the fact that he's only received 4 votes in 16 years, I mean, that's 3/4 of the time that he's been in the NHL where the people who watch the NHL don't even consider him in the top third of goalies that are playing.
Yeah.
To me, that's telling me a lot that he has never been consistently good enough that, it's not the Hall of Very Good. It's not the Hall of Long Careers. It's the Hall of Fame. And I do not see the point of him getting it. Now I can stop sharing this so Aaron can get off my phone.
I understand the argument, and like I'm not one that's going to sit here and say like, oh, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame. I just know that the way I think it's going to go is when push comes to shove and his name comes up in however the room or however the voting works, they're going to end up putting Marc-Andre Fleury in. Like, long term, they're going to find a way to get him in. I just don't see any way that they don't.
Spike, what else do you need? Another cup?
I think
A Conn Smythe?
I think any kind of individual award gets it for him, because, I mean, it can't just be about the team stats. It can't just be the wins. It can't just be the cups, because that's all team. If he's going to get in, he has to do something to set himself apart from the other goalies. He has to do something that says, I've had such a good year that I am being recognized as the guy, the one that you wanted to have. And, a Vezina does it. I think a Jennings does it. A Conn Smythe definitely does it for him. But failing any of that, I think it's really, really tough. I mean, not to compare him to Hasek, but look at Hasek got the Hart Trophy twice. How does Hasek win a Hart Trophy twice? How does a goalie win that ever? And he did it twice. Like, it's just.
Yeah, but Hasek's a no-brainer.
Oh, no, I get that, which is why, to me, it's just like Fleury doing nothing to set himself apart from his peers is not going to be good enough to get
sets
it.
you apart. 5 cups sets you apart.
Yeah.
Or 5 cup appearances.
The cup appearances help, but again, he's cup appearances with Crosby. Did
you have Belfour on that list?
Yes, I did.
What is the argument for Belfour?
Belfour he had a Calder, 2 Vezinas, 4 Jennings, and his playoffs, like.
He had a cup too, didn't he?
What's that?
He had a cup too, didn't he, with the Stars?
Yeah, he won a cup with the Stars.
Did he play?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he played against Hasek, I thought.
Yeah, it was Belfour and Hasek. And probably, if you ask anybody from Buffalo, then they didn't win a cup. But
he was in the crease.
That's another argument for another day.
That's fair.
But that was the guy I was talking about, where goals against and save percentage are basically the same as Fleury in the regular season. But when the playoffs came around, his goals against average dropped dramatically and his save percentage went up dramatically. That's not something Fleury can say. And I think with all these guys, it's a combination of numbers and individual awards. You look at guys like Luongo, he has the numbers. He barely has any awards. He won the Jennings once. Again, he probably should have won another Jennings and a Vezina, if not for Tim Thomas. Like Curtis Joseph, a number of years, good stats, only won the King Clancy the one time. Osgood, again, 3 cups, 2 Jennings, stats similar to Fleury. He's not in. Like, these are the kinds of things that make me worry. I would be.
I'm not a big Jennings guy personally. Like, you look at the recent Jennings winners. Thomas Greiss won a Jennings. Like, I'm pretty sure Rob Esch has a Jennings.
Right.
But they're better than no award, correct?
Right. Exactly.
Well, sure, but to me, like, I can write off the Jennings as easy as I can write off wins. Like, the team with the best defense is going to win the Jennings. That's not necessarily going to be the best goalie. Like, yes, it helps to have a good goalie, and sure, that's going to make a difference. But to me, that's not like, I'm not a save percentage guy. I just don't like that as a stat to be like the end all be all. This guy's save percentage is better than this. I think there's a lot more to it. And again, having watched enough of Fleury, like, there's no argument. He's an elite goaltender and has been for 15 years.
Sure. No, I mean, he is very, very good. I just think that it's that next level to get.
That position's so tough to get entrance to.
Yeah.
Well, that may change. That may have to change. Yeah.
Yeah, and that that's the other part of it is, like I said, there are 36 goalies in the Hall of Fame, or maybe 37 now. Whatever the number is, and Fleury's numbers, as far as goals against, as far as save percentage, win total is obviously up there. Win percentage, I think, is up there.
Where's he having shutouts?
But the goals against and the save percentage, he's like somewhere between 40th and 60th.
Yeah.
So he's not better than anybody they already have in the Hall, and he doesn't have the individual awards. I mean, it's just anyway. I think we're belaboring the point at this point.
That's a fair argument.
I tend to lean towards Spike, but I think you make a very strong argument based solely on his personality. You can't find anybody that hates that guy.
And you're not going to find a player. You're not going to find a coach. You're not going to find anybody. And I think the other thing is beyond that, I think you're actually going to find people that are going to go for him saying, look, he went to an expansion team and without him, they're shit. And instead they go to the cup final. Like, I think they're going to make the argument of look at what he's done. Look at what he helped Crosby do. Look at what, and again, you can make the argument it's ridiculous, but you're going to have people go to bat for him. And I'm telling you, if he misses out for 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row, it's going to get loud.
Mm.
Yeah, especially like you said, this is a purely opinion-based invitation.
Right. And we don't know how the voting works. Like that's one of the
true.
things they do is they don't even tell us. They don't tell us how it works at all. And so they just come out here and like, oh, Vaclav Nedomansky. You're like, okay, cool.
And if he does get in, I think the clip that they'll have in his display case will just be him laughing after putting up that little ice wall when he got pulled.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
he'll put up the bars.
Yeah. So, staying on Fleury a little bit, you said that you think that his number gets retired in Vegas.
Yeah.
I had always heard that McPhee was upset with the Capitals because he felt they retired too many numbers. So, if Fleury gets his number retired, do you think Engelland does as well?
No.
Okay.
I think, and even Fleury, he's going to have to win some more. And they're going to have to go to a number of playoffs. I think he's probably going to have 2 more years of being good, this one included. Obviously, this one having no conclusion, if they wipe this season out, that hurts a lot.
Oh, sure.
This could have been a season where he would have been a
deep run.
2, 3, 4 playoff series wins. That could have helped. I mean, I think they're going to want to push to do somebody because outside of him, behind him, where is the next
Mark Stone 10 years from now?
Even that, like, that's going to take – a lot. Like they have to win a cup in there for him to get it. I just think that he became the immediate face of the franchise. And as much as people want to say England, he's not. Like we like England because he stood up for the city at the time and he's from here and all that. But nobody was ever making the argument for this guy being the face of the Golden Knights team. Like he was the face of off the ice, maybe, but like never was he the guy. Fleury was the guy.
Well, the thing is,
the most unbelievable run any team in any sport has ever had to not win the championship.
Yeah, if England actually had moderate performance too with that, I mean, let's be honest. I know that Spike's way off on here, but I mean, most of the fans believe that he's a brick wall back there, and not in a good way.
He's a plank of fucking wood.
There you go. We'll call it that.
He was okay the first year.
No,
it's gone downhill.
First half of the first year, I was on the England train. After that, it kind of
it got bad.
Yeah.
It got bad pretty quick. And then again, they get too loyal. Like these coaches get way too loyal to guys, and they can't get out of their own way. Eakin's the perfect example. Like Gallant had to have gone. He had to have stood up in the offseason for him. Like there's no other way. He had to have said, that guy has to be on my team, and I don't understand it. And one of these days, I'll get to yell at him for it.
Well, let's stay on that loyalty topic. And we've talked about this on a few podcasts. There's some people out there that want Fleury gone. And,
I might be one of them.
Yeah, well, I had a feeling you might be. And there's a lot of people that believe Robin Lehner is actually better for this team, especially if they intend to compete over this small window that you have. Stone, Pacioretty, Carlson, Marchessault, and Smith locked up for the next 2-3 years.
I mean, the question
we're not gonna get our wish, though, I assume.
I think the question is, do they trust Robin Lehner? And it goes beyond, do the Golden Knights trust Robin Lehner? Buffalo didn't trust Robin Lehner. New York didn't trust Robin Leonard. Chicago, maybe they were doing the old cash in an asset and then re-sign him thing, but they never really offered him a contract. And if he did, he would have said it because he's about as honest as it can get. The second he got here, one of the first things out of McCrimmon's mouth was, yeah, his contract will expire. I just don't see them going that route. Now, that being said, if it's me and this is a magical world where personalities don't come into play, for the next 5 years, he's better. Like, he's going to be a better option. And honestly, you might be able to get him for cheaper. Like, I think it's realistic if you were to go to him this summer and say 7 years, six per, I think he's in. That being said, I don't think they're going to do it. I think the plan was always for the contract to run out. I also think they're switching goalie coaches. They're going to just wipe out the entire thing and hand it all over to DeBoer. And I don't know what that looks like. So I don't know where Leonard falls into that.
Yeah, the guy that was sticking with Martin Jones through thick and thin.
And hopefully they don't go down that road where they're going down their whole coaching tree, because the whole thing and that kind of the timing on that was very, very odd. And then the season gets paused and it all kind of goes up in smoke. But they yanked their goalie coach, who is McPhee's guy for 20 years. They just were like, yeah, you're out of here. Go to Toronto and hang out and don't hurt yourself. And they brought in the other guy, and I know the other guy, Rosati, pretty well. And I said to him, like, hey, is this congratulations? And he kind of looked at me and goes, I'm here. So I don't think either of them are coming back, which means where does that leave everybody? I don't know. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say the front office is just going to say, you've got Fleury for the next year. I think Fleury has tormented DeBoer enough that he'll deal with it for a year, and he's not used to good goalies anyway. And then from there, I think they'll utilize the expansion draft. And one of these teams, I mean, Columbus is the perfect example. Like, they have to expose somebody, chuck a second-round pick at them. You're in good shape. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams that come middle of next season when the expansion draft starts to become a reality. I think the goalie market's going to be hot. And the Golden Knights are going to be in a good spot to grab one. It's just, can they actually trade Marc-Andre Fleury?
Could Marc-Andre Fleury be traded and then picked an expansion draft for another team?
Ooh. Yeah. I mean,
it'd be an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, because his no move goes away, I think. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, his no trade clause is only 10 teams. So
right, but I think that in a no move, he would have to waive if he were to be off of Vegas. I don't think he has one. So yeah, I guess that's possible. But again, then he's unrestricted free agent at that point, or he's got 1 year left.
Still have 1 year left. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that they would go down that road. I think Carey Price is going to be the guy. I've been saying that for years.
That'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, I just think eventually Montreal is going to have to look in the mirror and say, can we win with all this money on our cap with the goalie? And there's only really one way to get rid of him, because I don't think a lot of teams are going to step up and make that deal. I really don't, especially with the way he's been playing.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think obviously Montreal kind of being in the shitter this year, even with some bursts of offensive prowess, their defense, just that back
mess,
terrible.
And he didn't bail him out.
Yeah.
And that's what he was supposed to do. He's $12 million goalie. You have bad defense, he should bail you out, and he didn't. And I think, and again, if you're Seattle and Carey Price is available, it's like no-brainer. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was Vegas and Fleury. It's
correct. They got a second-round pick for it. Yeah.
Especially if he can re-energize himself too.
Which, you know what, he probably would.
Maybe change the scenery.
Yeah, could be good for him. And I mean, those fans in Montreal, brutal anyway. They're also monumentally stupid, but they're brutal too.
Luckily, they can't understand us.
Yeah, it's true. I don't think there's too many Habs fans watching this thing, though, especially not even wearing Bruins gear. It's Boston Pride of the friggin' Women's League, and I'm still trying to piss off Montreal as best I can. Speaking of, very quick tangent, did you guys see the NWHL draft?
No.
The Boston Pride, who were 23-1 through the regular season and about to play for the Isabel Cup, traded up to get the #1 overall pick. So not only did they go 23-1, one loss through an entire season, they just got the #1 pick, who is two-time All-American, All-Star, and captain of Boston University.
Is that league going to survive?
They just expanded. Toronto's coming in this year, and Minnesota came in 2 years ago.
And they got to be a gate-driven league. And I don't know how they're getting Gate moving forward.
Yeah, that I don't know, but they
Maybe
partnered
they can find a TV network.
Well, they partnered with Twitch, so they've got all their games online.
Oh yeah, a lot of money should be made on Twitch.
Yeah, well, I mean, a handful of people are making their living off of it. I don't know if the NWHL can, but they're doing that. Anyway, we're getting off the point here.
So let's say this season wraps up however it does, whenever it does. What are the Golden Knights expected to do here in the offseason? I mean, like we talked about Ryan Reeves, talked about Noshek, John Merrill's a UFA, Derek England, thanks for the memories, and Robin Leonard with no Malcolm Subban. I mean, what are we looking at offseason? Who we go after, who we bring up?
I don't think it's much. There's been rumors for a while that if Alex Pietrangelo hits the market, he reasonably would want to come here. I still am not sure that's ever going to happen. I don't understand if you're St. Louis how that can happen. I still don't understand how that deal is not done. However, every day that goes away gives you another day. The offseason can get interesting, I think, if Alex Pietrangelo hits the market. Other than that, Tyson Barrie appears to be hitting the market. I don't know that they can find a way to make that happen without getting rid of maybe Alec Martinez. And are they going to be willing to flip that quickly and take a loss on that? I don't know. I don't think you're going to see much. Like, Reeves will be back on a fairly minimal contract. They'll probably overpay from what we all want him to do, but he'll come back. Merrill's probably out of here. Noshik, I think, is the interesting one, but what kind of an offseason are we talking about when Noshik's the interesting one?
It's fair. What about the backup goalie situation?
Yeah, I mean,
it's been dances to lose, but he seems to keep losing it.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and find like a Aiden Hill type guy, where it's a guy that's been in the NHL, who's had a chance but never really did it, and just let him and Dance go at it and switch back and forth between the AHL and do what you have to do. I think they're going to be fine with going with one, unless they decide they stay, yeah, we're playing from December to April and we're playing an 82-game season. Okay, then you might have to find a different way. But if they're going 82 over 6 months like they normally do, backup goalie doesn't matter. Like, the Golden Knights have had Malcolm Subban for the entire time, and they're going to win 2 divisions and be in the playoffs easily in the other one. I just don't think it matters. And not to mention, I think the plan that they did this season is going to become a blueprint that a lot of teams are going to start looking at. Like, wait a minute. You see what they did there? They had a shit backup goalie for the entire year and then gave up very minimal asset to get a monster to have a dominant tandem going into the playoffs. That makes sense. I think teams are going to start looking at doing that, especially for UFAs.
That is an interesting wrinkle, especially
LA,
you said,
right?
Expiring contracts. Yeah, Campbell got traded here.
Yeah, remember when LA got the guy in Dallas right now? Fuck, it's been too long since hockey. The big guy, Bishop.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Went from the Lightning to LA. And
forgot about that small period.
Thing. Yeah, and that made no difference at that time. But that's the idea. And I think with the expansion draft next summer, goalies are going to be hot potatoes because teams have to have learned from the last expansion draft. They have to have learned. There's 2 options. Fix your problem earlier before the expansion draft. Don't deal with the expansion team, or just let them take a player and move on with your life. Those are going to be the options, and teams are going to have to move goalies around because you can't just let them take a stud 23-year-old goalie.
That's true.
I think that's reasonable. I think the only problem that teams are going to run into is if they have goalies that, when they get hurt, if they can't rely on their backup goalie, then, you're essentially flushing the season, or you have to make a trade maybe earlier than you wanted or give up a little bit more because teams know that you're desperate. And I think that's where you run into problems. Subban, for as decent to okay as he looked in the first season, I think that's kind of what helped him stick around. I don't think many other teams put up with the kind of numbers he put up in the second and third year before they moved on from him.
I think they need to learn to be able to, though. I think that first season for the Golden Knights is a great example. Like, they went max legacy, played 18 games, and then Subban played another 20 behind him. It doesn't matter. If your team's playing well, you can overcome it, at least to make the playoffs. Now, granted, you can't go into the playoffs with a bum goalie. Like, it's not going to work. You have to have a good goalie going into the playoffs. So you can't do that. But for the first 50 games, if you have a playoff team on paper and they play anything remotely like what they should be able to do, your goalie doesn't matter. There's not enough difference between the top goalie and a mid-range AHL goalie to make it matter. Yes, you will lose games. You will lose more games. You might not hang your division banner, but you're not getting knocked out of the playoffs when 16 out of 31 teams make the playoffs. It's not happening. If you're a good team, you should make it. I would never expend any money on backup goalie until maybe the deadline. And even then, I don't like to do it.
Huh. It's an interesting point.
Last thing from me here, and I like the guy personally. I just, looking at the roster, when he comes back, it's hard to find out who goes. I think I'm kind of almost done with Alex Tuck at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm nowhere close to that. I just think he was in his head for a while there. I think the skill set is elite. He just has to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And to me, the number is good. Like, yes, $4 million with a static cap. It's a little high now, but this is going to be year 2 of this thing. If he even comes close to being the player, Cody Eakin was just making 3.5. 6 years from now, Alex Tuck's going to be making 4. Like, that's going to be a terrific contract in the back end of it, unless somebody's ponying up massive assets for him. Like, I got to be getting a first-round pick plus to move on from him, just because I think the contract is terrific. And, like, yes, he had a bad year. Yes, he had the injuries. I get it. Like, I completely understand the argument. I just think the contract is way too good. And to me, anybody who had to play an extended amount of time with Cody Eakin deserves a pass. He clearly drew offense out of whoever was playing with him. Like, there was a stat, Tyler Bischoff from ESPN Radio put out a stat. I don't remember the exact number, but it was like all but one player that's ever played with Cody Eakin in Golden Knights history had a worse expected goals percentage without him or with him than without him. Everybody was worse with Cody Eakin. Like, he was awful on this team, like terrible.
Huh.
And that's why that third line was garbage forever. The one time they weren't garbage was when Cody Eakin went up and got to play with Pacioretty and who was it?
Stone.
Must have, yeah, no.
Yeah, it must have been Stone.
Yeah, it might have been Stone at the beginning. Stone at the end, yeah.
Yeah, because it would have been Stastny.
You can't make an argument for this guy sucks when he played half of his games with Cody Eakin. Well, no shit.
All right, well, that's fair. I mean, thanks for talking me off the ledge a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable to me. It's just my problem is my problem with Tuck is the same as with Glass. If they can't stay healthy, I don't want them draining money. I don't want them on the roster. I just, I let them play a few games healthy and then show other teams, hey, look, he can stay healthy for an extended period. Here you go. Give us something.
Where do you come down on, like, what makes you injury prone? Because, like, I look back at his stuff this year, like, the one that really hurt him towards the end there's no way you're avoiding that. Like, somebody clipped him, bangs his knee. Like, there's no way to avoid that. The other one, I think, it was a wrist injury. He had a back injury the first year, but he played a lot of games in the last 2 years. Like, I'm not ready to call him injury prone, and I'm not a big injury prone guy anyway.
My big problem with him, and, obviously we can attribute some of this to Cody Eakin, is, the second year he had, I think, 52 total points.
Yeah.
But 42 of those came prior to the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And after the All-Star break, he just disappeared. And then the beginning of this year, even with Cody Eakin or, whatever that line was, he did nothing.
Yeah, it was 17 points this year and 42 is bad.
And that worries me. I mean, a guy, even if he's making $4 million a year, he needs to put up more than 17 points.
Yeah, no question.
And, whether or not somebody's injury prone, I don't know if that's like something that we can't tell. Like, Tuck seems like he's a big guy. He seems like he's in shape. He seems like he should be taking care of himself. I don't know if it's just a genetic thing with him. I know with Glass, to me, it looks like for as tall as he is, he just needs to hit the weight room because he's getting bullied out there.
Yeah. I mean, Tuck played 78 the first year, 74 the second year, and then 42 this year of 71. So there's 45 missed games in there in 3 years. Like, it's not that bad for me.
Yeah.
But the other question is, since a lot of the core is around for a while, except for maybe Stastny, if he needs to be with better players, there's nowhere to put him on 1 and 2.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
unless you have to move a guy down, and
what do you think of Stevenson?
I thought, from what I've seen of him, I thought he meshes very well with that Stone and Stastny and Pacioretty line, whichever players out at the time.
So if you decide to go that route, then you're looking at Tuck playing with Stastny and another winger, which is probably what Cousins or Wah or somebody like that. To me, I think getting away from Eakin's going to help. I think he needed a center that didn't suck.
But does he need the minutes? Third line minutes is not,
52 points in 1644. Well, that was his average time. I think he could get 1644. I think they need to let him kill. Like, he was terrific killing penalties when Gallant let him do it for just a short period of time there. I think he could be a very good penalty killer, although the new system kind of takes that away a little bit, because the forechecking is what I thought he was good at and denying entry, where now they kind of just allow the other team to come up through the neutral zone and then they trap at the line.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't stand DeBoer's penalty killing system, but whatever.
I was getting that impression from you there.
Yeah, it's just bad. And like, I don't understand how Gallant got such shit for having a terrible penalty kill when they were bad for like 5 games in a row. Like, yeah, okay, you were hitting at 50% for 5 games. Yeah, that's a problem. But over the course of time, like, he was a top 10 penalty kill guy the entire time, and they scored a bunch of shorthanded goals.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't get that. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have plenty of things to get mad about at DeBoer for over time.
I mean, we'll definitely inserting Alex Tuck back in the lineup whenever that is. I mean, is he ready to go if the season starts?
Yeah, for sure. I still call bullshit on the whole thing. Like, I think he was ready to go. They just had to use LTIR. So they were like, yeah, you're injured further.
If the season starts, who's the casualty?
Well, Glass is hurt. So it would probably be, it might be Wah. I could see Cousins being a healthy scratch.
Yeah, okay. I think I'd put in Wah over Cousins. But...
I mean, if it's me, it's Reeves, but.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's never us.
That's not going to happen. I mean, Carrier was playing terrific. We'll see how that goes if they come back. Like, he might not look the same without the conditioning underneath them. The other thing is, however they do this, they're going to cram it all into a short period of time. There's going to be like 11 injuries in the first 5 games. Like,
oh, for sure.
So, yeah, there's a casualty for game 1, but, like, then 6 guys are dead. Like, put somebody else in there. Like, I'm not too worried about that. What I am worried about is when they have the 6 casualties and their injuries. Like, okay, Patrick Brown is the best option to come up. Like, I don't understand how that happened. I still don't understand how they just were like, oh, yeah, we have all these good guys who score in the AHL. Let's let them all leave. We don't care. Patrick Brown will do. Like, I just don't get that.
Like I said, McPhee's had a few head scratches.
Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you let the AHL MVP just walk? Like, give him a chance. Like, I never understood that.
Yeah, it's been
it's
been baffling at times trying to figure out what they're doing with personnel and the younger talent trying to come up. I think they're just worried that, they've got all the top, essentially the top 9 forwards locked up, or, that third line maybe is a bit of a rotating door, but.
Well, hopefully some of that third line actually pushes down to a fourth line. They scrap this bullshit, let's hit everybody until they hurt thing. Let's play good players. Like, that's for me. Yeah. Like, if you can have a roster where it's Tuck, Stevenson, and Wah, and then your bottom line would be Carrier, Noshik, and Cousins, like that, how is that not better?
I can dig it.
Or eventually plug in Dugan, plug in Elvenis. Like, eventually you might have some skill coming through. I don't know. I'm not overly thrilled with what the Henderson blanks are going to look like.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one too. I can't wait to see how that all works out with an AHL team right here in the backyard too.
Are you getting the tickets to the season tickets to the AHL?
As long as they're in the Orleans arena, I will strongly look into it. Once they go to Henderson, I mean, I live on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It's going to be a minute till they get to Henderson.
So maybe the first 2-3 years
I think it was already going to be 3. Like, they were talking 2, but that was a quick turnaround. I think it's already going to be 3 now. Who knows? I mean, they're going to push that thing through because the money's there, so they'll just bully it through. But how long it's going to take to actually put that thing up, it's going to be rough.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Where's that money come from?
Room tax.
Oh, God, shut the fuck up.
Hey, I'm just parroting talking points.
Dude, I still, every time I go on Twitter and I see Aaron Ford has tweeted, I reply and I ask him how the fuck he voted for the Raiders Stadium. And he still hasn't responded to me. I guess to nobody's surprise.
Somebody won the governorship because of it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that.
All right, well, Ken, we greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your
Anytime.
Out of your schedule to talk with us, and hopefully, for all of our sakes, hockey gets back sooner than later.
That would be fantastic because if I watch another episode of Chopped or Beat Bobby Flay, I might have to hurt myself.
Are you watching Chopped Sweets too?
You got Netflix or Hulu or anything like that?
The Chopped Sweets doesn't even have the good host. Like,
I know.
You're not even going to give me Ted?
It's the guy who couldn't make an Italian restaurant work at the Red Rock.
Actually, I met him over there. He's a good guy.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he's super tall. He was like, I'm 6'4". He was way bigger than me.
No kidding. Wow.
Oh, this guy's a monster. Very strong handshake, too. I got to get a stronger handshake. These hockey guys, they'll hurt you.
Well, you've got time right now to work on that.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm exercising handshake.
Those grippy things.
I come out of quarantine like a huge wrists. Everyone's going to be like, what were you doing? Handshakes.
Yeah. Aren't you married? Why are you so
I swear it was handshakes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ken from SinBin.Vegas. We appreciate the time again. Thank you very much for joining us.
So, yeah.
Take it easy.
All right. All right, Spike. So Ken with SinBin.Vegas. We just got off the horn talking with him. Are you still in camp, no Hall of Fame for Fleury?
I think he makes a very good point that people may vote him in on personality basically alone, because I don't think the numbers bear it out. He's borderline at best with the numbers, but I think just he's right that everybody that's met Fleury, everybody that's talked to him, everybody that's seen him, it would cause them pain to say no to Marc-Andre Fleury to get into the Hall. So I think he makes a point. I still don't think he gets in first ballot, but I think down the line maybe he sneaks in, and that's just, you deal with it.
Well, the good thing.
I don't know why I'm shitting all over this guy. Like, oh no, he can't get it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be happy for him to get in. It's just I've been saying that he won't for so long that, especially my wife. My wife gets fucking pissed every time I even bring it up. But no, whatever.
Maybe because she was having a conversation with you about what you want for dinner, and your Fleury shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I won't eat if he gets in.
That's unfortunately accurate.
Well, special thanks again to SinBin and all the guys over there. They're doing a great job. With no live hockey, they are definitely finding more and more inventive ways to keep us Vegas Golden Knights fans entertained.
Yeah, very much so.
And obviously, we want to thank our sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports, where you can find us playing at 12ozsportsradio.com, and also Seat Giant, promo code 12 Ounce Sports for all your discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets when they come back.
And they're all going to be discounted because people are going to be selling en masse.
I thought so too. And I don't know if these two are correlated before we wrap, as we're wrapping up here. Golf is coming back here in Nevada tomorrow.
Really? Oh, well, the looser restrictions on using the
correct, but the price is double.
Really?
Yes. I don't know if that's just supply and demand 101. We're all dying to play golf, so they're going to make us pay. So I wonder if the resale market for Vegas Golden Knight tickets, when everybody's salivating at the mouth to go back to a hockey game, we'll see.
That would be interesting.
Be good for people looking to sell.
Yeah, well, that would be nice for those games that the wife and I can't make it to.
True.
Huh.
All right. For Spike, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening in, and we will catch you on the next one.